And their son will be prearranged in his marriage. And he actually says that he wants a marriage just like his mom and dad. How often do we hear that in our culture? So there is merit to it. It's just, it can't work in our culture. It's not where we're at. I mean, come on. Prearranged marriage. We go back to that. Wow. So we're just not going to go there. But prearranged marriage is a biblical arrangement. It's actually mostly how the Old Testament functioned, was based in prearranged marriages. They also had many wives. So we're not going to follow that entire model. The second principle is what they call courtship. Now, courting someone is exactly how the McLeod household is going to function. And so I'm going to explain courting this. I'm not kidding. That's exactly how this is going to function. Now, courtship was popular in the 1900s, and we need to resurrect it again. Because it is the most biblical way for young people. Meaning when you're still living with mom and dad, or in Dan's case, not so much. Who else lives with mom and dad still? Most of this room? All right, you're all good for courting. It was popular in the early 1900s. It doesn't work for mature Christians in the sense of like you're in your 20s, you got a job, you're independent. Courtship's not going to function that way. But when you're younger, courtship is actually a beautiful thing. And I mean, even prearranged marriages, like it sounds ridiculous, but I'm like, as a dad, that's brilliant. Like prearranged marriage. So if I can't have prearranged marriage because of our culture, although it is brilliant for a dad, I'm going to go with courtship because courting means that if any guy wants to date my daughter, then he needs to come and date me first. That is the best way to explain courtship. And I always vowed this, even when I wasn't a Christian, I always said, I will not date a girl whose parents hate my guts, unless I've determined her parents are idiots. Then it's okay. But a true version of courtship is simply this. You want to date my daughter, you are going to come and hang out with my family, and I'm going to get to know you a little bit. And as I get to know you and get more comfortable with you, I'm going to determine whether I'm going to allow you to begin to date my daughter or not. In other words, you need to like baseball. You need to golf. I'm going to weigh all of that stuff. Are you serving Christ or are you not? All of that stuff I'm going to look into because I believe that we date to get married. So this guy is going to date my little girl, one of the two. That's why I had a boy, so he can legally kick the snot out of them and I don't get in trouble. And they're going to get to know me first. And then I'm going to determine whether my daughters are going to date this guy or not. This is exactly how my household is going to function. And my little girls know this already. Reagan, Julia, some boy wants to date you, have him call me. And we'll start that process when you're 30. It's funny how your mindset changes. Anybody here have kids? Some of you have kids. Your mindset really changes when you have kids. It really does. I do not want a dude like me around any of my girls at all, ever. I got to know Carrie's parents very well. I became friends with Carrie, got to know her family, became friends with her, and I married my best friend. And I believe that that is a healthy way to function. The third way is the way that we don't endorse, and that's non-Christian dating. Now, that would be the dating. I'm not talking about whether a Christian and a non-Christian. I'm not even going to get into that, unequally yoked and all that stuff. I'm not even going to really get into that today because that's a whole can of worms. What I'm talking about is non-Christian dating, meaning dating the way the world shows us to date today. Right? Like my son in junior kindergarten has recently been reported to me that he's running around kissing all the girls. And he's my son, so it makes sense. But at the same time, it might be a little bit too early for this to begin. The funny part is it's usually with our senior pastor's daughter. So, yeah. But Okay, I told you about how in the 1800s dating was prostitution. I want you to look at it like this, okay? And this isn't a reach in the dark here. In non-Christian dating and just the dating of the way of the world today, we see a good-looking girl or a good-looking guy, and we hook up with them. We go out for dinner or whatever. This would be a good date, right? Okay, and we go out for dinner and all that kind of stuff. Now, see, in courtship, you've got to go to their house and you got to hang out with the family. In non-Christian dating, we're just going to go and pull them away from the family because we don't even want to come in and meet daddy, right? We want nothing to do with mom and dad. That's way down the road. I don't want anything to do with mom and dad. I'm just going to pull up, honk my horn, and get her out here, and we're going to go out for dinner. But then it gets a little further because a lot of times in non-Christian dating, I mean, hey, if you bought her dinner, I mean, that deserves favors, doesn't it? I mean, I took her out. I spent money on her. I bought her dinner. I took her to the movies. That deserves favors. That, in essence, is prostitution, isn't it? Think about it. Think about it. I don't know. The way the dating functions today, honestly, it's no wonder why we can't have healthy marriages and healthy relationships. It's an absolute disaster. I mean, the ways of the world are so involved in it. We don't want to meet their parents. We got to stay away. We're totally just dating. I mean, when I was in high school and I was the hockey player and all that, I called them arm candy. It needed to be a hot girl that I took to hockey functions that looked good in photos, and hopefully I would sleep with her. I mean, I just expected it. And usually that's exactly what you got. I mean, I remember being at parties and totally being in hot tubs with naked girls all around me. And drinking, just hanging out, and I was 15. So I lost a lot of respect for girls over my time in high school and playing hockey because I was like, man, just because you think I might play in the NHL and I might have some money, you want to date me? So I'm just going to sleep with you and use you and kick you out. I mean, what do I care? If you're going to be that dirty, so be it. That's the way of the world. That's the way it is. And we wonder why our marriages and our relationships can't function right. You marry your best friend. What's wrong if you don't want to do courtship, if you don't want to do prearranged marriage? What's wrong with just becoming friends and letting it go from there and respecting each other? I mean, whether you're Christian or not Christian, this is a simple concept, right? Girls, you want to be respected? Let's hear you, ladies. Yeah, right. Guys, do we want to be respected? Sort of. Right? I mean, that's kind of what we all want, right? But we look at it, again, our culture affects us so much because our dating kind of designs who we are in the sense of our popularity, in the sense of the people that we hang out with. I mean, we ran with certain people in high school, and those were the girls you dated. And like, if you went outside of that, everybody's like, what are you doing? Like, you're not supposed to be talking to her, kind of thing. She's kind of ugly. Like, that kind of thing, right? Because we had this predetermined thing of who we hung out with and who our peer group was and who was cool and who wasn't. And when we let all of that shape our dating relationships, that is going to lead to disaster. Absolute disaster. It's very, 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 very rare that you will marry the person you date in high school. It happens. Most of them that it does happen break up, but it does happen. And I see it in youth ministry so much, 15 years old, and they're like, but I love him. I'm going to marry him. No, you're not even going to know who he is by the time you hit college. It's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. So, why bother? The other thing that I think is a problem is that I'm going to put this on the guys, okay? Non-Christian dating is that it is guys with the freedom of men, meaning they have incomes and they have jobs and cars and so on and so forth. That's getting into your age now. Responsibility. They have the freedom of men, but the mindset of boys. Let's open our Bibles.